Let's go green. Sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
Good evening and welcome to Let's Go Green with Zoe Ryan sitting in once again for Aisling O'Rourke. On tonight's show we'll be exploring the steps we can be taking to reduce our plastic pollution, considering the significance not just to our landscapes but also culture of holy wells and recognising those promoting circular living in our locality. A little later on I will be talking to archaeologists with Arbiter Heritage Tara O'Fuelon about their surveying of holy wells in the Midlands, and Aoibhinn Fitzpatrick from Circular.ie will be here to fill us in on how their upcoming awards are going, which are aimed at recognising those bringing about positive change in our communities through engaging in a more circular way of living. But first, how is it July already? We're officially over halfway through the year, but July also marks the important period of the environmental and sustainable calendar. Across the month we're being asked to engage in plastic-free July by making small changes and swaps to reduce our plastic usage, thus having the knock-on effect of decreasing the demand for plastic pollution and in turn it's decreasing the demand for plastic production and thus in turn plastic pollution. Just as I'm trying to get our guest who is going to be speaking with us now, Leanne Costello from Coast Biodiversity Officer at Antashka, who's going to be telling us all about the changes and swaps that we can be making. In our next segment we're going to be discussing the topic of holy wells, and I want you to tell me, have you ever visited a holy well and why? Let me know. Drop me a message or text on WhatsApp on 083 3010 103 and we exploring that topic after this.
Let's go green. Sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
It is Let's Go Green on Midlands 103 with Zoe Ryan. Now, before the break, I asked you if you'd ever gone to a holy well and for what reason. Please do keep those messages coming in, but before we get around to them, joining me now to outline the environmental and cultural significance of the structures across our landscape is archaeologist and heritage researcher Tara O'Fuelon. Tara, could you start off by telling me about this survey that's been carried out on the holy wells around County Westmeath?
Yeah, so the survey is being done by Arbiter Heritage, which is the company I work for, and we're doing it on behalf of Westmeath County Council, specifically the Heritage Officer Melanie McQuaid, and funding has been provided by the Heritage Council. And what we're literally doing is we're trying to survey all the holy wells in County Westmeath. Now, a holy well is slightly different to a normal well that you drink from. Generally, there's a religious connection, whether it's a saint has blessed it, or, there's pilgrims that visit it, or there's cures connected to it. Mm-hmm. Slightly different than the average well. And we've got about 72 of them in Westmeath, that we know of anyway.
Talk me through the history of the holy wells, how they would have come to being in the first place and how people traditionally would have used them.
Yeah, so holy wells are generally natural springs in the ground. So in the past, in pre-Christian times, they most likely would have been used as a good water source. The saints were kind of famous for creating them, usually hitting a staff against the ground, or there's some saints that they run across the landscape and everywhere their foot hit the ground, a holy well sprung up.
Okay.
And for years they were used with pattern days. So there's certain days of the year, like Good Friday is a famous one, Garland Sunday would be another one, where people would go to the well in droves. And I mean hundreds of people at the well at a time. Mm. And the power of the well was seen to be stronger on that day, particularly the night before. If you got there at dusk and kind of stayed late into the night, that was seen to be a more kind of potent time.
Okay.
But the wells themselves, the pattern days, they got a bit rowdy in the 1700s and the 1800s. We had things like huge amounts of drinking, faction fighting, rushed marriages, all of that. And the church sort of turned against it. So that's when we start to see the wells and the well use declining, is sort of from the mid-1800s onwards. And then in modern times, we've seen a big decline again as people kind of move away from kind of old traditions. But I think think they're swinging back, to be fair. And Ireland, we have an unbelievable history of holy wells. We actually have over 3,000 of them on the island. It's the most holy wells in any country in the world. So it's a huge part of what makes us unique as an island.
It's interesting that you say how it was believed that they were formed. I know that we have one kind of locally in the area. It's in Killy. And I believe the story of that, the origin story, is something along the lines of monks were running across the field and they had bells in their pockets. And when the bells dropped, that was, lo and behold, where the well sprung up from. So it's interesting to think that this is written in scripture somewhere, that, you know, we genuinely did believe this is how they came about. But how would they actually have come about, would you think, from a structural point of view? Do you think man-made creations, I suppose?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually, the story you just told there, because there's just some great tales associated with how the wells form. It's just a way for people in the past, if they didn't quite understand where the water was coming from, it's as good an explanation as any. Our understanding is that the majority of them are kind of from aquifers, which is essentially like under the ground. Some soil and some rocks are able to move water more easily than others.
Right.
And it just forms a tunnel and it pushes up at a weak point in the soil and comes out. But some holy wells aren't actually springs. They can be kind of like pools that just gather water, like, so let's say rainwater. Or some holy wells are actually Balan stones. And these are like big stones that humans have like carved out this hemispherical shape into it. And again, it gathers rainwater. And so they're considered holy wells as well. So typically they're a natural spring, but sometimes they are man-made as well.
And I almost think that the description, holy wells, it's nearly misleading in a way. I recall the first time that I went to visit one of them, I was expecting quite literally your stereotypical shape of a well. You know, the shape, and you'd look down into it and it'd be quite deep with water at the end. You know, the traditional with the bucket that would go down to it. Whereas the one that I saw, it looked quite more like a stream that maybe just had a couple of levels of rock. So as I said, for the most part, the shape of a well is nearly misleading.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know exactly the stereotypical holy well you're thinking of.
Yeah, like a stepping stones.
Exactly, yeah. Most of them, it's when I walk into doing the survey, a lot of the times it's a flooded field that I'm looking at, you know. It's only when people making a special effort to kind of create a pool or to even create steps, that's a big effort. Sometimes it literally is a hole in the ground with water coming out. So yeah, it really depends on the community that looked after the well in the past, whether they put some structure into it or didn't.
Or built up kind of around it.
Exactly, yeah. So you do get a lot of variety in your holy wells, which is quite nice because it does reflect the kind of community that's living in the area, you know, whether they feel comfortable, you know, putting their trade and their time and their efforts into the well, or if they feel like more about, no, this is natural and we just kind of step back from it and just let it do its own thing. It's nice.
And why now? Why are you deciding to do this survey at this point?
So there's been a few surveys around Ireland in other counties like Monaghan, I think Roscommon, Clare and Mayo have done them, and they've had really positive results. So in some instances, they've actually discovered more holy wells in the county than they realised. But it's also helped to kind of promote and preserve the wells, because we are sort of going through an age where the wells are just not used as much as they used to be. And unfortunately, we're losing the knowledge of how to use them, if you get what I'm saying. So just going to a well isn't really what was expected in the past. There were certain prayers, there were certain days to go, there were certain ways you moved around the well in order for it to work for you. And you know, less and less of us are doing that. And unfortunately, we might actually be losing that critical bit of our cultural heritage. So if we survey them now, if we record them as much as possible now in 2026, hopefully that'll be useful for future generations.
Yeah, it really is a case of, as you say, we don't utilise the wells as much as we once did. Maybe, you know, I suppose our ancestors would have really put a focus on them. It's a case of they're part of the heritage now. They're part of the landscapes. Oftentimes we don't even know that these holy wells are there. There are a couple of them, though, that I suppose would be highly renowned for the healing purposes. That's one of the reasons why people would flock to them. And those are the ones that I suppose are probably in one way best preserved, but also maybe there's a little bit of destruction happening by people visiting them all the time.
Yeah, and that's natural part of it. If you have large groups of people coming, especially to areas that aren't, let's say, tarmacked, there is that bit of destruction. People are going to be taking water from the well. And that's okay. I think that's part and parcel of the life of the well. If we just preserve them in a glass box, they'd lose their kind of meaning as well. So it is just about getting a nice balance. And a big thing would be, just not littering, bringing your litter home. That's really helpful. But another thing we're finding is, so usually connected to a well, there might be a rag tree. And on the rag tree, you would typically leave a bit of clothing and you tie to the tree and you'd have a wish. So this might be, you have a sore leg and you want your leg to be healed, or you're doing exams and you want to pass your exams. So you tie that to the tree. What we're seeing now is a lot of kind of fabrics that don't biodegrade.
Okay.
Or even we're seeing like dog poo bags being attached to them.
Right.
And though I know that could be handy in the moment because it's they don't biodegrade, and it's a shame. So the best thing to do is to go for something more natural like cotton or wool. And even for your own sake, like the idea is as that cloth rots, your sort of wish comes true. So if you're putting something in there that's never going to rot, you're essentially condemning your wish, So it's best for the environment and best for you to get the right kind of material.
Okay, so you're not deterring people from visiting these wells for the purposes that, they feel like these powers that are there, and from, as you said, engaging with the landscape and maybe applying the items to the rag tree, but to maybe be more conscious in the materials that they're leaving behind.
Absolutely. That's 100% it. And these wells, the ones I'm talking about, are the ones that are accessible to the public. So the likes of like St. Bridget's Well in Clare or St. Stephen's Well in Tyrrell's Pass. Other holy wells, like the vast majority that I'm going to, are on private land. So we just would discourage anyone from going onto private land without the landowner's permission, yourself.
And from an archaeologist's point of view, what's the importance and why we should be trying to preserve these wells?
So from an archaeological side of things, the wells have this amazing long history. As far as we're aware, like really clear evidence, they have been used since really early Christian times. So that's like the 5th century. So that's like around 400 AD. So they're well over 1,000 years old, excuse the pun. And they've been used throughout that time. I don't think I know of another archaeological site that has been so used over so many centuries consistently. So they are an amazing archaeological site that's still used to this day. I think it's really important to kind of keep them going, to not let it kind of fade out with this generation, And there's lots of other archaeology connected to the wells. They're not isolated. So they're often, nearby an ancient monastery or an ancient church. There might be crosses beside the well. There might be little, sometimes they've built houses in the kind of 20th century to kind of protect the well. There's often stones beside the well that could look like absolutely nothing to me and you, but they were put there to represent the Stations of the Cross. Or there's other ones that are they look like piles of stones. And they're literally penetration stones where people left a stone when they went to visit the well. And the pile was created by the amount of people that went to that well. So there's loads of archaeology at the site. And it's well worth preserving for future generations.
Tara, I know last month you held an information session in the locality to tell people about the survey. Now it's how it's going to be conducted, why it's being carried out. And from the turnout and public engagement at the event, do you find people have a good knowledge of the wells in their area? Do the sites hold a special place for them?
Yeah, it's actually interesting you asked that. So we had that talk in Moat Library, and we were just talking, like you said, all about the survey. And at the end of it, I kind of turned it back to the group and I was like, put your hands up now if you've gone to a holy well.
Yeah.
And nearly everyone put their hands up. And I was like, put your hands up again now if you went to a holy well and you performed the rounds, which would be like the custom that goes with the well. And I would say maybe 2 people put their hands up.
Okay.
And that would include myself. If I go to a holy well, I tend to go down, bless myself and walk out again.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know the practices for that specific well. And so even though everyone was really interested and passionate about the wells, it just shows you that we're already losing some of the knowledge of how to use them properly or how they're originally used. So I just think it's important if we can record that now before we lose any more. And it could be really useful for people. If I was visiting a well now, I'd actually look up the customs and I'd try to perform them when I'm there, just to try and keep that bit of heritage alive.
And what do you think, and I suppose hope, will come out of this process of doing the surveys?
Yeah, so I hope we get a really good idea of the wells now. I get a good idea of the number of them. Perhaps we might find some more holy wells that maybe fell through the cracks in the past. But what I'm really hoping for is to record memories and stories and even photographs that people might have of using the wells in the past. So I had a guy get in contact, and I won't name names, but he was essentially showing me pictures from the 1980s of his local well.
Okay.
Now this well, when I went to visit it, God, you could barely see it. It was just, it was overgrown. It hadn't been used in decades. But in the pictures, there were hundreds of people marching up the road, like as far as the eye could see in the photograph, people coming up the road. He said there was marching bands, people playing music. He was like, it was a whole day out. He was like, there wouldn't be a person left in the parish that wasn't at the Holy Well that day. That's only about 4 years, give or take. And the difference in that time period. So if any of your listeners happen to have photographs or memories of going to the well as a child, I'd love to hear them. We're actually hosting a Heritage Week event in August. We're going to narrow down the details now soon, but it will be on the Heritage Week website. But if anyone has an interest, please do come along to that and share your stories. We would love to hear them.
So essentially, this survey process is kind of twofold. It's one, I assume, to discover, okay, where are these wells? What are their physical locations on the maps? What can we kind of draw conclusions from for that about why they're in these locations? Maybe it's a case of looking at it going, okay, well, that area there should be preserved. We shouldn't allow kind of any construction on that because the Holy Well is there, things like that. But it's also about, as you say, documenting and recollecting the stories, the heritage that people will have in these locations.
Absolutely. This is the thing. It's definitely twofold. We're not just here just to kind of preserve them or put them away and keep them separate. It's sort of trying to keep them alive as well. There's some lovely publications, if anyone's interested. I think it was Tamlin McHugh. She's done a book on the Roscommon Holy Wells. And it's really a lovely book with all the photographs of the different wells. You really get a lovely flavour and sense of the people of the county from the way they look after their wells. So if we can kind of do something a little bit similar to that and preserve the Westmeath ones, that would be amazing. This year, we're focusing on the wells of the south of the county. So it's everything sort of south of Mullingar. But hopefully, if the funding comes through in future years, we'll cover North Westmeath as well.
And are there currently any protections in place for the likes of these sacred spaces? Like, is it a case of if, a holy well is documented to be on a piece of land, can people build on it? Can it be covered over or destroyed, for want of a better word? Or do they have some sort of protections in place?
So they actually do. So holy wells and all archaeological sites in Ireland, so that's ring forts, castles, portal tombs, whatever you like, they're all recorded archaeological monuments. And we know they exist because when the Ordnance Survey went out in the 1800s, they mapped pretty much so all of them for us. And all of these recorded archaeological monuments, they're protected by the National Monuments legislation. So if you do destroy or damage a site like that, you can be prosecuted.
Okay.
It's why you're going for planning permission and there's a site on your land, you're better off looking for permission further away from it, because the closer you are to it, the less likely you will be to get that permission. Now, in my experience, the vast majority of people have no intention of hurting or damaging a site, but they might not realise what they're doing sometimes, Yeah. So with holy wells, I would generally say, because the ground, like you said, it's not that stereotypical deep well that you can look into. The ground around it is often quite sodden, it's quite wet. If you can try and keep heavy machinery or heavy animals like cows sort of away from it, that would be ideal, because just the weight of them going over that wet soil kind of compacts it. It can move the archaeology, it can damage it. So ideally, you wouldn't want your animals getting too close either, because they can often fall down into the well trying to get at the water. So it's just getting a nice balance. You know yourself, if you're a landowner, you're just trying to keep your animals alive, but also for your own sake, just keep them back from the well as well. It's also nice to talk to the landowners and just help them out. They've been wonderful throughout this entire project, really helpful, great for telling stories about the wells. But it's great for them as well. They get to hear it from an archaeological side. You know, we get to help explain the story of their well. We can sometimes give them information that they might not have previously known. Yeah. So it's a nice bit of back and forward between the two.
Tara, thank you so much for speaking with me on this evening. It's really fascinating. I think that most people in Ireland, we can all say at one point we've either visited a holy well, either been dragged along as a child by a parent, or we've actually gone with real intention ourselves. Like, I know even a couple of years ago, I was filming a documentary series, and like that I was looking at alternative treatments to medicine, and I did in fact go to a holy well, and like that I spoke to a local priest who was seemingly an expert on the kind of history of it, and he gave us a rundown and talked us through, as you said, that ritual, the proper procedure for that particular well. And it's lovely to be able to capture and preserve that part of our history that, as you say, kind of the generations that would have engaged with them more, they're moving on now, or they're not around anymore. And it would be sad to see it lost, because it's nice to think that we have these traditions that they might seem a bit mad, but they're lovely to have.
Absolutely. And like you said, like, they are still living on. Like, at some wells, you'll see pens being left for students doing the research. Right. Or you'll see, lighters from people wanting to give up smoking, or you'll see inhalers for people who are suffering from asthma. We're still using them. It's just not to the same level as it once was.
Yeah, or maybe people aren't kind of publicly letting on that they're using them, that it's nearly like, something that they're a bit embarrassed or a bit ashamed to admit that they're engaging in it, or that they've resorted to such levels to go, you know what, we'll just say a little prayer. But as I said, it's lovely to see that they are being documented and that they've not been forgotten, and that they are going to be collated in this way, and that there's going to be record of them.
Absolutely. I'm sure people will definitely be making their way to the wells now, hopefully this year.
Brilliant. Tara, thank you again for your time.
Great, thanks Zoe, all the best.
And as Tara said there, if you have any stories or photographs documenting a holy well, do get in touch with Abarta Heritage to help them with their research surveying the sacred spaces. You can contact them through their website, www.abartaheritage.ie, where you'll find their email address and links to their active social media platforms. A little bit of trivia for you now about the holy wells. We've got a couple of texts coming in from people, and one of them is that damaging a holy well is believed to be a bad omen, linked to stories of cattle dying and even people's houses burning down. That comes in from Damien. So there you go. As we had discussed there in the conversation, people do have a lot of beliefs in this, and the superstitions around it. So that is one of them that I wasn't aware of. And Mary has come into us saying, traditionally, taking water from a holy well for reasons like washing clothes or cooking is forbidden. The water is solely for drinking, curing and rituals. Interesting. Another report says that seemingly, if you boil water from a holy well, it won't get hot. It just stays cold. And we have plenty of texts coming in there in various illnesses. People have visited holy wells to cure skin conditions, cancers, broken bones, shingles has been mentioned there as well. And I know that a topic that was recently covered on the Midlands Today show was, I believe it was a man who was licked by a lizard. You go to them for sunburn. So as I said, that was recently discussed on the Midlands Today show, if you want to look into that one. I myself was brought to a Seven Sun fate healer before. And do you know what? I'm glad to hear that these type of stories are being captured through this survey, because after all, us Irish are prided on being great storytellers. So it's good to see. But still to come, if there is someone in your area who you would consider a circular champion, someone who repairs, reuses and refurbishes items instead of throwing them away. If so, you'll want to hear what's up next.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
It's Zoe Ryan bringing you Let's Go Green on Midlands 103 in the absence of your usual host, Aisling O'Rourke. Now for a lady who is no stranger to being on the Midlands 103 airways. Evelyn Fitzpatrick, formerly of the Refill Mill in Mullingar and currently Community Manager for Circular.ie, is here to tell us all about their Full Circle Awards. Evelyn, you're very welcome out to the Midlands 103 studios this evening.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, before we get on to talking about the awards themselves, tell me a little bit about Circular.ie and the role that you do with them.
Yeah, no problem. So Circular.ie is the national platform for circularity in Ireland. And our focus really is to create more awareness around what circularity actually is. So that's about reusing what you already have, reducing your consumption and your waste, repairing things that are broken, sharing things, upcycling things. That's all circular. And there are thousands of projects and organisations and people all over Ireland that are taking part in the circular economy and circularity. And we're just trying to bring more awareness around to them. So as the community manager in that, I'm kind of engaging with lots of different community groups all over Ireland who are embracing circularity and then trying to kind of amplify their voices, get more awareness around the projects that they're doing, more people involved in the projects that they're doing, and just really kind of bigging them up, essentially. Yeah.
And thus comes in the awards, because obviously when an award is at play, it's nice for that work to be recognised that people are doing, and I suppose maybe a little bit of an incentive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things when I started in this role that it really struck me is how many volunteers there are in doing incredible work all over the country, and small businesses and social enterprises that are just putting in just really, really hard work on the ground and pushing circularity forward in Ireland. So the idea with the Full Circle Awards is to give credit where credit's due, and just basically shouting out people that are doing the right thing and giving them a little bit of a reward for it. So there's a €2,000 prize.
Wow, okay.
You get a handcrafted trophy made with upcycled materials, and then you also get a bit of a push media-wise from our campaigns.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what you get out of it. But I know that there's a good few categories that say if you're thinking, all right, who falls under this? So there's 6 categories in total. Talk me through the categories.
Yes, I will. So we wanted to cover all the bases here. So we've got our Repair and Reuse Champion. So that's for people who regularly repair or repurpose, kind of extending the life of things like tools or clothes or furniture, that kind of thing. We've got Community Circular Champion. So that's people who are really kind of leading and supporting community initiatives like sharing libraries or, swap shop events, food waste solutions, or even repair cafes. And then we've got our Creative Circular Design. So that's for artists or designers or innovators who are making solutions from waste. So something that would otherwise have gone into landfill, they're creating something new with it.
Okay.
So we're getting some really interesting nominations for that one. And then we've got our Circular Living Advocate. So that's for individuals essentially who live by and promote zero waste, low impact lifestyles, sharing tips on what they do. So that could be like educators within the community or even small influencers that are just pointing people in the right direction. We've got our Best Community Campaign. So that's really just to spotlight the kind of campaigns that are happening. So the likes of a Tidy Towns who are encouraging people to use their reusable bottle, that kind of thing. And then we've got our newest category this year, which is our Circular Sports Champions. And that is for athletes or for clubs basically that are embracing circularity, so by having jersey swaps or boot swaps or encouraging people to use their refillable water bottles. Those kind of initiatives that are really becoming popular within sports clubs all over the country, we're really trying to place more of a focus on them and give them a shout out for the good work that they're doing.
Yeah, because that's an interesting one. Like when I think of, I suppose more so the soccer league rather than the GA, I don't know how many times I turn on the television I go, is that another new kit? Now I know officially is what they've 3 kind of per season, but I think it feels like they've more. And like that when they've different championships like, World Cup and other things like that. And I'm going, how much waste is going on there with the jerseys being thrown. Now, I don't know where the jerseys go once they're done with, but I know that with the likes of the GA jerseys, we're seeing that there's definitely a difference between the ones that the players are wearing and the ones that are being sold in the shops, because the ones that are being sold in the shops are robust. Like, I mean, they're going to live longer than the rest of us. But the amount of times you see the slightest jersey pull and it just rips right off the player. So it's great to see that, as you said, there are clubs acknowledging that and going, right, there's an awful lot of kit being circulated around here, let's move it on, let's give it another life.
Yeah, exactly. And even when you're thinking about younger people coming up through the clubs, like if you've got a family and you've got 3 kids and they're all playing football,
all want the latest.
They all want the latest, but it's really good to get in when they're kind of younger and start thinking, well, why, if you've only worn this pair of football boots 5 times and you've grown out of them, then why are we throwing them away? Pass them on. So it's I always think with circularity, it's like really bringing things back to the basics. We're going back to the old ways rather than doing anything new. We're not doing anything new. It's bringing it back to making sure that we're sharing what we already have, swapping what we already have. Like, you know, the stuff you're saying, like, it's made to last, a lot of the things, and we're just mindlessly throwing it out. So it's really bringing awareness to, you know, thinking about the value of the materials that we already have. And I think a lot of people can kind of agree, you know, that it's wasteful, it's infuriating sometimes, you know, having to just throw things out. So it's nice to have an alternative to that.
And it's great that, you know, in recent times we've seen a revival of retro jerseys coming back. Like, I even know only recently my nephew came into my room and he looked up in my wardrobe and he was like, what's that up there? And I was like, oh, that's like an Awfully jersey. And he's like, it looks different than ours. Like, it was one of the proper old ones from like before the 90s even, and it had like the old crest and everything. And he's like, can I have that? And I was like, no, you can't have that, they don't make them anymore. Do you know that? But I mean, I'll pass it down to him sometime. But at the moment I'm like, I might still get a few wears about myself. But as I said, it's great to see that being recognised. Now, if we look at eligibility, so I know that this is more aimed at the individual, the community groups, less so than companies, or we'll say people who professionally work in the area. Yeah,
it is. We're really we're not a corporate kind of focus on this. We're looking for the individuals, we're looking for the volunteers, for the people that may not normally get recognition and credit for the work that they're doing, even though they're putting the hours in. So we've steered away from that kind of corporate setting. We're looking for, you know, average people, you know,
your everyday,
ordinary people, everyday people that are doing that hard work.
And looking at the eligibility there as well, you can nominate yourself.
And I would highly encourage people to do that. You know, we're not great at tooting our own horns sometimes. But we're seeing, actually through the awards, we're seeing a lot of people self-nominating. So if you are a listener and you're thinking, well, I'm actually doing that, I think I should get a little bit of recognition to it, why not? And you can nominate friends, you can encourage other people to nominate you. So you know, you can be nominated as many times. You know, we're not limiting it to one nominee per person, you know. So you can nominate as many people as you'd like. So I think the most important thing is nominating them and giving them a chance to win, and I would love to see some people from the Midlands winning these prizes. And
what's the kind of judging like? Like you're saying there about nominations can come in. If, say, someone has multiple nominations, is that kind of standing out to you then as one to look at, or will you be looking at each nomination and making a decision based off that?
We'll be looking at each nomination. Okay. Yeah, we'll be looking at each nomination, what's put on the nomination form, if there's social media as involved with it, if there's websites, we'll take that into consideration. But that doesn't have to be part of it. If it's just somebody that has a really good story, that's doing really good work, and we can see some evidence towards that, that will all be taken into a consideration. And is there any kind of particular, I suppose, criteria that either the nominator or the nominee have to meet? I know that I saw a breakdown on your website about it, and it was saying about, you know, like the person who's been nominated, they need to know about it, things like that. Yeah, we would like for the person that's being nominated to know about it, because we will be contacting them. So we won't be contacting them out of the blue. We need to have their contact details as well to be able to get in touch with them. Nominees need to be over 18 as well, but it's not very restrictive other than that. They can't work in a they can't have a full-time position in a sustainability role. Those are the kind of cut-offs for us. Yeah.
And so that's the awards. When have the nominations to be in for this, and when can we expect maybe some of the actions then to happen about it? You said you're going to be reaching out to people, and then obviously there's the awards themselves. So give us the timeline of events there.
Yep. So you can nominate right now. You have until the 24th of July is the deadline for the nominations. And after that, we'll be doing some shortlisting. That will go on to our judges who have we're keeping that under wraps for the minute. We have some really great judges. Yes, so they'll be announced in the next coming weeks, and then we will have a shortlist. We have our shortlisted 36 people who will be shortlisted, and we'll have our award ceremony on the 17th of September. Yes.
And has there been any follow-up? I know that you ran these awards last year and you did have your winners under the categories for last year. Have you done any follow-ups with them to see what they have done maybe with, we'll say, like the money or more so the media exposure? Has it led to anything for them, any of the people who won last year?
Yeah. I mean, last year it was a little bit different. It was our first time running the awards. So they got loads of exposure. Like they got loads of local attention last year. A little bit of national press picked up on it as well. And we did see that some of the projects, so the money actually for this isn't going into the projects itself.
Yeah, it's just for the
just for the individuals. So we don't actually know how the money was spent. But no, we did see a lot of coverage around people getting it, and we're seeing that kind of the award-winning Full Circle award winners on their websites and on their social media as well. So it's just giving them a little bit of clout and a little bit of credibility, because we had some smaller winners as well as some big kind of social enterprises last year as well.
So that's the awards. But what else is on the cards now for the coming months and maybe over the next year for Circular.ie? Because you do loads throughout the year.
Yeah, we do. We're really active. I am constantly going to different towns and county, places all over the country, engaging with different community groups and projects, seeing what their needs are, specifically around communications, because we're a communications project. So it's really focusing on the message. How are we getting more people involved in this? So we're seeing what their needs are. We will be running a grants programme from August, our Circular Communications grants.
Great.
So I'll be back in to talk to you about that.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah. And other than that, on the platform itself, we like to highlight events that are happening all over Ireland. So we encourage community groups to get in contact with us through our events page and basically shout from the rooftops the kind of events that you're having, and we'll promote them on the page. We're always giving tips on how to embrace circularity, and we have lots of in-person events coming up towards the end of the year as well. So you'll have to keep an eye out on our platform to see where they are.
So busy few months ahead for you.
Busy, but busy in a good way. It's very worthwhile, very wholesome kind of work that I'm doing. So I really enjoy it.
And speaking of the work that you're doing, we're going to go a little bit back in time now for a second, because at the start of the show I had mentioned we were going to be looking at Plastic Free July and kind of talking about the swaps that we can be making in an effort towards that. Now, unfortunately, we weren't able to get the original spokesperson we had lined up on the phone line, but luckily and coincidentally for us, you have a background in that. As I said in your introduction, you formerly had the refill mill in Mullingar, and as we were discussing about before we came on air there, you don't tend to see the likes of like refill stations being very commonly used or promoted across the country. So could you talk to us about the concept of that, the refill idea, because that is all going towards this reduction of use of plastic?
Yeah. The refill idea is essentially the reason I took it up at the time was because I was so sick of the amount of plastic that was going into my bin every week. It was really frustrating. But to refill with that is basically using what you already have. We already have washing up liquid bottles, laundry detergent bottles, hand soaps. All of those plastic bottles are already in our home. So instead of throwing them out,
because a lot of them are fairly durable and robust.
Yeah, those bottles are made to last for hundreds of years. So like if one was just left, it wouldn't biodegrade or wouldn't degrade for about 200 years. So they are very robust. And I know that they can be recycled, but when you're recycling, plastic can only be recycled a finite amount of times, and then it's
a good step, but this is a better one.
Better one is to absolutely reuse what you have. So the idea with refilling is basically taking it to your local refill station. There are a few around the Midlands. In Mullingar we have Nuts and Grains. They have they've got liquid refills.
Okay.
I know Low & Co in Athlone also do liquid refills. So there's loads of little kind of small stations around around the Midlands that have them. But you essentially bring your bottle in, they weigh it, and then you can refill it with your washing up liquid, and then they weigh it again, and then you're paying for just the product and not for the plastic packaging that comes in it.
Yeah, because you're bringing that yourself.
Yeah, because you're bringing that yourself, exactly. And then you can reuse that bottle over and over and over again. It will last you for years.
Yeah. And if we're looking at other smart swaps we can be making, talk me through a couple of ideas that people could have that are saying things like that maybe you're buying in your weekly shop or you're buying regularly, that you're going, well, actually there is an alternative to that's not plastic.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things about it is just becoming more aware of what plastic you use. So knowing what you're throwing out, like what is your number one thing that goes into your recycling bin every week? Most of the time it's food packaging.
Yes, I was going to say milk cartons. Right?
Yes, yeah. So it's really kind of the awareness around what it is you're actually throwing out will give you the best indication of where you should start.
Yes.
So if you're throwing away, like condiment bottles, I think it's such an easy swap. Instead of buying plastic squeezy bottles, buy the jars of mayonnaise, buy the jars of ketchup. That kind of stuff will really go a long way in reducing your plastic waste. There's also really cool alternatives that are out there to plastic now. So instead of liquid shampoo and conditioner, we've got shampoo bars, and conditioner bars are becoming so much more popular now.
Yeah, and I have tried them myself, most pleasantly surprised. They're just as good.
They are. I found them like I think they leave your hair in really good condition because they're usually made with natural ingredients.
Yeah, and they're not sitting in a plastic container, because I think a lot of the time people don't realise that over time the plastic that it's sitting in starts to seep into the product.
Exactly, especially when it's exposed to heat. So if you're having a hot shower,
of course.
Yeah, that plastic is seeping into the product that you're using as well. And I know that sometimes they can be a little bit more expensive to buy outright. So usually a shampoo bar or a conditioner bar will cost you about 10 or 12 euros to buy. But they are the equivalent of about 2 to 3 bottles of shampoo and conditioner.
Yeah, you need to use far less of them.
You need to use far less of them, and they just last for a long time, and it's a good quality product as well. It's the same with soap bars. They're a simple swap out from the liquid hand soap. Again, it's nothing new. That's bringing it back to the old ways as well.
It was,
things like using your bamboo toothbrushes over the plastic toothbrushes. Another thing I like to think about when you're on the go is, you kind of get caught out with getting plastic cutlery, or the alternative to that is usually the bamboo cutlery, which I think feels horrible. I think a lot of people are so put off. It's not pleasant to use it. So I don't think it's a good alternative to plastic, but it's not the nicest one. So I think something really simple to do when you're going out. A lot of us are used to using our reusable coffee cups and our reusable water bottles.
Yeah, they've become the norm.
They're the norm now. I think the next step to that is bringing cutlery with you.
Okay,
and just wrapping it in a napkin and just bringing it with you, and then you have your own cutlery. That's your designated I'm on the go cutlery.
Yeah,
and you just wash it over and over again.
And we're seeing now as well that I've seen the likes of your lunch boxes, or even like your granola pots, the reusable ones. They're coming with kind of near like a rubber sealing on it that has a space where you slot in your cutlery.
Yeah. So things like that. One of the things that we need to do in order for people to use less plastic is to make the alternatives convenient, and you need to just kind of bring it into your routine. So know why you're doing it, what your reason is for reducing your plastic. Is it because you're sick of paying for the recycling going out every week? Is it because you're worried about the harmful chemicals and plastic in your food? It's kind of knowing why you're doing it, and then slowly but surely incorporating it into your routine.
Yeah,
plastic free July I think is such a good idea, but it can be a little bit daunting if you think I'm not going to use any. That was my first plastic free July. I said I'm not going to use any plastic for the whole month. I think I lasted 1 or 2 days.
There's so much of it around us.
Much.
As you said, sometimes we don't even notice that we're using and engaging in this use of plastic every single day. Like I'd say if someone stopped now and said, okay, what did I have for breakfast, lunch and dinner? What did I remove my food out of? You're coming to counter with it all the time.
Yeah. And the more aware you become of it, the more annoyed you become about it. Basically, I was so furious I started a business around it. So, but I think slowly but surely making those small changes and then building them into your daily routines and your daily habit, it becomes second nature after that. So, and it's really kind of empowering. You give yourself a good pat on the back when you're
doing something good.
Exactly, yeah.
But you've touched on there something that I think a lot of people will resonate with, is that, like that you said, your first time you looked at it, you went, oh God, I can't do this. Do you know, like it's so overwhelming. Where do you start? And it's like that, it's the small changes. But sometimes people can get so deflated by it, they go, oh, well, sure, what's my little change going to do? But you have to think about, if everybody made them little changes, it's the cumulative effect that it has.
Exactly. Like if everybody is doing it, it makes a huge change. When I had the shop, I remember from just the refill of the plastic bottles in the shop, in 1 year we saved over 10,000 bottles from going into the recycling bins.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a huge difference from one small shop in one community. So if everybody if every household made small changes like that, they make a significant difference. They really do.
And as you said, it's tapping into the reason why. That's the main motivator. Like I only this morning, maybe it's because I was consciously thinking of this item coming up, I just noticed that on one of the boxes on a product in the bathroom, it had that picture of contains plastic, and it was nearly like a two-sided graphic. The first one was, I assume it was like a do not throw in a toilet, because it was a picture of a toilet with an X on it.
Yes.
And then the next one was a turtle with a thing floating over him. So I'm assuming that meant don't throw it in the toilet, because if you do, this might end up in the water system and endanger the animals. And so that would obviously play on the heartstrings of a person who's all for, you know, saving the animals.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part as well, as you said, tapping into your reason why. What's your motivation? And I think that if a lot of the maybe advertisers could do that, they'd have more success with people making these changes, because they'd know it's all for a good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's because and for the same, like, reasons are different for everybody. Like nobody's going to be, you know, it's not a one size fits all. But I do think it is important to know your why, because otherwise it's just a fad. It's just something that you'll do for a week. But really bringing it home to, are you doing this because you are worried about, you know, your kids' futures, the amount of plastic, the environment? There's so many, your pocket even. There's so many different things in why you would want to reduce your plastic waste.
Yeah, as you said, who are you doing it for?
Exactly.
Yeah. Evelyn, thank you so much. It's been lovely chatting to you in the studio this evening. Best of luck with the awards, which you've actually been asked on to talk about, and for filling in for us and speaking about how we can be more plastic friendly, but reduce our level of plastic for Plastic Free July.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you can find out more about Circular.ie's wider work on their website and social media channels, as well as getting in those nominations. Evelyn, remind us the nomination date that you have to get them in by?
In by the 24th of July on Circular.ie.
Fantastic. That's it for me tonight. Aisling O'Rourke will be back on hosting duties from next Monday night, but you can catch me, as always, on Thursday evening from 7 to 8 for Encore, your weekly arts and entertainment show.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.